Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Vast is the road of liberation, a formless field of benefaction, wearing the universal teaching, and realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the road of liberation, a formless field of benefaction, wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the road of liberation, a formless field of benefaction, wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being.
Can you hear me okay? Clearly?
Yeah, great.
Small group today. I think the smallest we've had so far.
Oh, we have Lynn's coming in.
All right, another one. It's good to be here.
Oh, we have Ellen. There you go. They're coming in now.
They're coming in person too. Hopefully you can't hear them because of noise canceling and stuff, but we've got some filtering in still. Great. I guess we can begin with our 5 minutes of practice stitching, followed by another 25 or so of silent sewing practice. Are there any questions, status checks, anything like that before we jump in?
Just quickly, so that I can do some stitching. So I've got the thing pinned to the interface. Yay! And do I just like put chalk lines around to just do, is it a running stitch I attach that with?
Yeah, so the running stitch you can probably do without any sort of chalk line or any sort of guidance. Make sure that it is well within the seam allowance though, and it stays well within the seam allowance. Have you done the step, it's generally the step right before you cut and measure, or measure and cut the frame, where we did it last or 2 weeks ago, the one with the square where you choose your corner, you mark that line, you mark all the edges again. Have you done that step yet?
I found the center and pinned the center and made sure it was the same width from every end, if that's the same thing, is it? Is that?
It's not what I was referring to, but I think that answers my question on where you're at on it. So I would just say if there's any seam allowance chalk line that's already there, that is not like the rest, one of these is not like the other, maybe pay heed to that and make sure to go outside of that one as well. And I think as long as you're outside of all the existing chalk lines, maybe a ½ centimeter from the edge of the fabric, I think you'll be safe and secure when you're doing your running stitch.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Yes, Trudy.
I've got these crazy little guys.
Aren't they? Yeah.
So they're the corner pieces that go onto the 4 corners. And I've pressed a diagonal into them. Mm-hmm. So does that look about right to attach?
It does to me, yeah.
Okay.
And I do, my preference is, and I think it is stated in the guidance as well, but to baste that first.
Ah, right.
And that will should hopefully allow you a lot more confidence as you go.
Perfect. Yes, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, I'll do that. Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Those are tricky. It's a lot of fabric to go through.
Yeah.
Take a couple of photos, Trudy, so you can send me them.
I've done lots. I've taken lots of photographs of the piece before I cut it, and then the
Oh,
um,
brilliant, brilliant.
like that.
Great.
Then I guess we can begin with our 30-minute practice.
Okie dokie.
John, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm just in the process of making the frame, and I'm doing the bit where you fold the bits different ways on the corners. So I'm doing the first corner. What I wanted to ask is, do you press it at any place? Do you iron it at any place?
Not in this phase. I don't. I never did. Let me confirm if the instructions mention it. You've probably been looking at it more recently than I.
So
I don't
on page
believe.
7. I'm on page 7.
You're now ready to fold down.
I'm going to stitch, pin the ears to one layer of fabric, and then fold
I
it.
don't. No, at this phase, you don't want to impose any sort of crease or anything because you're going to be inverting this again.
Right.
So no need to press at this phase. There will be a running stitch, kind of a basting sort of stitch, but it stays in. And then once you get to this phase here, where you're going to do the Namukie Butsu, I think that would be the first phase where you would want to consider pressing.
Okay, right, thank you. That's helpful.
John, can I ask a question?
Sure, yes.
So I've basted the corners onto the corner. I haven't gone through to the silk on the back yet because I wanted to make as few marks on the silk as possible. So I do the Namu Kubutsu stitch as close to the edge as possible.
Yeah, that's right. Just like you did on the panel and on the frame.
Yeah.
And that's prudent of you to avoid puncturing the silk. That's wise.
Yeah.
You will. I'm sorry. You will, of course, be puncturing on this one.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't want to do it more than I had to.
Prudent indeed. Yeah.
And the other question was, this doesn't mention knots or no knots.
I've done no knots
Okay.
on this as well as the frame.
Okay.
So same way you did there. And just like with, or I don't know if it's clearly stated in the instructions, but on this one, it's best to pull the needle all the way through while doing the Namakibutsu stitch, as opposed to, okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for checking.
So, John, I'm up to the bit where I've sewn the face to the interface. And then the next stage, that's the silk, is it, on the other?
It is, and if I recall, it's basically just the reverse of what you've just done.
Right. And do you iron the silk before you attach it to get that crease out?
So you do have a crease. How pronounced is it?
It's quite a folded in half crease.
Yeah, you're probably going to. Do you have spray starch?
No.
Okay. There is starch on it, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Um, does your iron have the spray, the misting option? Like a little button that you press that mists?
Oh yeah, like a little spray of water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So so this piece that I have in front of me, this had a pronounced crease in it before when I was away for 5 minutes earlier. And what I've done is uh, I wet the entire surface with that spray. Generally, wetting silk is not super advisable, but in this case, you can just gently dampen the entire surface so the whole thing kind of changes color, that little bit of that one shade, like something does when it's wet. And then on the silk setting, just iron it back and forth very slowly and diligently to re-flatten it, and you should lose the crease. You may also, I haven't ever measured, but it may cause a tiny bit of shrinkage, but because so much of this is inside of the frame, I haven't even bothered to be concerned with it. And we've done this many times before on now completed Rakasu without incident.
Yeah. Okie dokie, thank you. Well,
You're
if you hear a screech, there's a hole in my silk.
Oh no, yeah, no, I don't think with the between the water and the silk setting you should be fine. And then you might. I'm wondering if it's worth advising to acquire some spray starch to redo it. I imagine because you're just applying moisture and then removing the moisture, that the starch will be unaffected in the process. I'm seeing a nod from Trudy. I think Trudy's
I
in
think
agreement.
Anne said it should be fine earlier,
Yeah. So
so
then I think you.
shouldn't need restarching.
There you go. There's that answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Okay, John, I've hit a snag.
Okay.
So on the front of the Rakasu, the little square is sitting 0.5 in over the edge of the frame. But on the back, when I'm coming through, it's actually on the silk, not on the frame, because I think that for reasons that I don't fully understand, the back of the frame is slightly smaller than the front of the frame.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we're going to just want to make a judgment call, probably,
Okay.
as opposed to redoing the frame and recentering the frame on the front versus the back. How much on how near to the back? Can you hold it closer to the?
Yeah.
So that's it there that I'm seeing.
Yeah, you can see that little line of blue stitching.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
And will you reverse it?
And it's
Yep.
it's that one.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. And you said you're right on the edge. You're very near to the edge. I can't quite see it because it's that very
Yeah,
similar.
I'm trying to get as close to the stitches are there, sort of on the edge.
Okay. I think that because the spacing on the front is much more important than the visibility on the back. Of course, this garment is worn with the front showing, not the back. I would say just continue on.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I don't know of any way to fix that without entirely redoing the frame. And I think it's beyond an acceptable deviation. I think that I don't think that any
Yeah,
divine beings are going to be frowning upon you for this.
I hope so. I've got wonky guardians now.
No, no. They're squared up on the front. That's what matters.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
So, John, I went back and checked my measurements, and I think I was slightly under the the 0.5 over. So I've rebasted it, and it's just catching onto the edge on the back rather than on the silk.
That's great. I'm glad that you did that. I guess I took you on your word that the measurement was there, but it goes to show.
Yeah, I thought it was, but I've gone back and remeasured it, so that looks better.
Well, that's a treat. That's a nice surprise.
Good.
John.
Yes.
So I've done me. So I've got the front and I've got the silk on the back.
Mhm.
And is it a running stitch again to
Yes.
attach the silk to the thingy?
Yeah, a running stitch, and the color is immaterial. I've chosen a white cotton, partially because it matches, but also because the only matching thread I have is silk, and well, silk is less vegan. You know, it's less. There's more life involved.
Yeah, and I was just thinking as I was taking the little piece of paper that says face interface out of the interface piece, that how lovely that I have a pin all the way from Austin.
That's and you'll be able to keep that too. That's
Well, I'm very sentimental like that. It'll go with all my other bits that I shall be
that's
keeping.
clever. That's nice. It's a good sentiment.
It is, it is. A daft question.
No such thing.
Does it matter how far away from the face and the to attach the silk? Is there a kind of a distance, or?
I'm doing it the same kind of distance as though there were a seam allowance, but I think anywhere you can see through my silk where that blue thread is, anywhere from that matching thread to the edge is fine. No,
Great.
no great importance.
Thank you.
I would say if your space is smaller, what you might do, kind of a just in case check, you can measure. There's the final step for face and silk is to make sure that the distance from this line to here is not more than 4.2 centimeters, or is it from here to here? Check that. And that measurement may be a good basis to make sure, so you don't end up cutting off
Yeah.
seam allowance of face.
Right,
So yeah, if
no more than 4.2, or
right, no more than 4.2. So as long as your stitch is within that 4.2, then you should be safe.
great. Is that 4.2? Oh, let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, because it's 3 centimeters away from each edge on mine.
It's 4.2 from the chalk line, the seam allowance chalk line.
Oh, all right, the chalk line.
Looks like mine are all falling within.
Dead on 4, mine. Is that a problem all the way around?
No, there's no problem at all. As long as it's not more than, because you're going to be enveloping it in that frame, and you just don't want the frame to be the edge of the frame to be kind of fighting with that interfacing. Looks like I'm going to have to cut this edge maybe just a little bit in some places.
Yeah, so less than 4.2.
Right,
Less
and anywhere it's more than 4.2, trim that edge.
Right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
So John, is that sort of tidy enough for the back?
Oh, I think, yes, I definitely think so. That looks, yeah, very clean, straight lines. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Not the best resolution, but I think you could see any, glaring.
Yeah, it's not too wonky.
No, not.
Okay.
I've seen a large variety. Sometimes they're just little tiny, like someone didn't pull the needle all the way through in 2 steps. I've seen
Right.
ones that are jagged. You've done well.
Thank you. Just for future reference for anybody else who's kind of got to this bit, is I put little arrows on each of the squares in the direction of the fabric so that I could line them all up exactly the same on the corners. It says mark the direction of the fabric, but I did it quite a lot on each square so that because it rubs off as you're trying to fold them.
That's good advice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Maria, can you
Thank
stay
you.
on?
Cool.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy
Bye.
Thank you for all the tips.
Well, I'll be gone next 2 weeks.
Right. Thanks for letting us know.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.